I'm Shan. I'm from MEF membership team. Okay, and we will be doing another session today, for all our members, and probably some of you are non-members. Okay, so before I start my usual introduction, okay, and then I will actually pass it to our OSH consultant in Fahmy. Okay, so can everyone give me a quick hands up here? How many of you here are actually our non-members? Let's see who here are non-members, and it's the first time or probably do not know about MEF in detail, perhaps can give me a bit of response here. Okay, thank you so much. So I will start today's session with my membership introduction. Okay, for members, just more of a FYI. Okay, for non-members, this is something that you can get to know more about MEF. Okay, it's not going to take very long. It's going to be about 5 minutes or so. 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, so without further ado, okay, welcome to MEF webinar today about our OSH, which is Occupational Safety and Health session, okay, which we're going to have our senior consultant of OSH, Encik Fahmy, joining us in a bit. Okay, so here I am actually going to share everyone a video of a simple introduction of MEF. It's actually just going to be a 2 minutes video. So yeah, I'm going to play my video. Okay, so this video is actually just a glance about what MEF is. Okay, I'm not too sure how many of you actually came to MEF office before. Okay, as you can see the video, we have been through years and a lot of transitions and updates today. Okay, so today I'm just going to actually give you a bit of introduction about MEF. Okay, so in MEF, Malaysian Employers Federation, okay, we are basically an establishment which we aim to be the top advocate for private sector employers in Malaysia, safeguarding employers' interests and also ensuring the legal compliance. So basically, this establishment of us is made up of four main components. Okay. First is actually called MEF News, where we are often seen very related, I would say very close related to the government, to making statements in the national news and things like that. Okay, and also providing official announcements, and we call it circular in another sense, to our members on the latest updates. As an employers, you should know. Okay. Secondly, we also have our very own publications. Okay, with backed and support by our very own research and big data team internally in MEF that actually does surveys, gathering insights and polls and things like that to come up with very, very valuable, to combine all these valuable data and come up with the publications to benefit our members in return. Next, we also have our very own events and conference. Plan our very own events and conference on a national level, okay, and even to a smaller scales like trainings and seminars. Okay. Lastly, I think all of you might most likely get to know MEF via our industry relations. Okay. Industry relations is actually one of our forte. Okay, in MEF, where we actually have a team of legal certified lawyers to actually help you manage employers and employee matters, any grievances, mergers, and stuff like that. So, but on top of IR as well, okay, we do provide services like HR services as well as OSH. So one of the top consultants that we have, Encik Fahmy, will be the one that will be sharing this topic with us today. Okay, moving on to the next, drilling further down in details. Okay, in IR, basically, what a member, okay, once you join MEF as a member will get is you will get access to legal services, including court representation. So let's just say if you have any court cases, that you think that you need someone to represent and present it better and bring out the facts better. So we actually have these such services provided by our very own IR team. We actually have a bunch of IR consultants here, which experience in this field to be precise. Okay, so as mentioned earlier as well, we actually have our big data and research information. So what our members can get here is basically you can get a lot of insights and surveys and publications to make informed decisions. So I will share a bit on our books later on. Okay, so you can actually have an idea on what are the topics what are the things and topics that you can expect from us. Okay, so we also have our very own IT team, okay, that provides our member portal, our admin portal back end, okay, and also our very newly done website. Okay, so this is actually a very big effort, okay, of IT doing a digitalization to MEF this year round, okay, where we actually moved on from a very traditional workflow into a more digitalized data-centric system. Okay, so this will actually gives member a way better I would say user-friendly access and also experience to actually log in your portal and access everything that you need to in one place. Okay, next we also have our very own, we call it MEF Academy, MEFA, training programs, which we help employers to actually supply training programs to basically a employee soft skill training programs. So if let's just say, if today you will need some HR training or anything in specific, or you even need a trainer to go over to your place to actually do a very tailored program or talk or, seminars, okay, you can always reach us and we can arrange something with MEFA to actually supply you that services. And lastly, we also have OSH, Occupational Safety and Health. Okay, this is actually one of, I would say, a very bright department as well that actually have been contributing to MEF services as well, because we do not only provide talks, seminar, we do not only have experienced consultant like Anis to actually do that, we also do auditing. Okay, we also come up with attending talk, keep up to date with the latest trends and insights that we need to also provide training for companies like your good self. So you can also basically send your employees over for OSH training. Okay. So the most of the questions we receive is usually like, why MEF, right? So these are basically just a bit of pain points, to wrap up everything that you might face during the challenges that is very normally faced at work, okay, and why MEF and how MEF can help you. So usually we will actually help with the Employment Act, any latest amendments, and labor law rules and stuff like that. Okay, if you also have any shortage in industry skilled talents, we have our training programs to help you. Okay, let's just say if there's any national news that comes up related to minimum wage and progressive wage policy that I would say very, very closely related to an employer. Okay, it will affect a business and employer. So this is where you also come to us for advices and guidance on how you should implement certain plans that you need to do. Okay, so of course, to wrap up others is basically process of collective bargaining agreements. Okay, if you have any retrenchments and termination matters, you want to do it correctly and legally. You will need to also have if you have any OSH compliance cases, or you're also not sure about equity and fairness about staff compensation and benefits, all these are part and parcel of what MEF covers in our services. Okay, in short, you will need us. So our mission is basically, representing employers and the leading HR development by promoting effective employment practices in Malaysia. Of course, IR as well. Okay, so the idea is to guide, enhance, and protect our employers, our members in short. Okay, so this is a glimpse of our members' benefits. As soon as you join as a member, these are the things that you get. Okay, so for all members here that are listening, if you are not in any of it, and if you have any questions or clarifications, or you need to engage in these services and you do not get it, please feel free to email us. The email will be shown in a bit in my latest slide. Okay, for those that is not a member here, so this is something that you can expect. So every month, okay, we actually have a monthly meeting, we call it, that is chaired and hosted by our very own legal consultants. Okay, about it can be in different topics, okay, across different states in Malaysia. So we actually have a few, I will go to the branches later on. So each and every region will have their separate monthly meeting. So for example, for instance, Sabah and Sarawak, East Malaysia, a lot of time the topics will also be very catered locally to that region. Okay, so of course in KL, it will be more, I would say most of the people are based here, it will be more national related issues. Okay, so next we also have a real ODTM that you can actually subscribe to our mailing list and get any updates, be it trainings, be it announcement, any holidays that you need to observe or honor and things like that. It will be done in ETM as well as your members portal. Okay, and also you will also be getting advisory and guidance lah. So for simple generic ones, okay, you can actually just call in, and we can actually connect you to our IR consultants. But provided we only serve members, so you also need to actually prepare a member ID. Once we get it verified, we'll pass it to our consultants. Okay, and of course our very own members portal mentioned earlier. And lastly, also a WhatsApp community that linked to within members to our IR consultants in case you need to have any maybe just legal inquiries, simple queries or questions that you face. Basically you can actually do it on WhatsApp as well. Okay, so the difference between the one earlier and exclusive is basically different. Okay, exclusive will come with a slight charges, but rest assured that MEF charges are usually much lower, much affordable compared to the private legal lawyers that is being charged. That is going to charge you outside. So that's one of our key standout, I would say. Okay, so our IR consultant, being charged at this affordable rate, we are also authorized, we are able to represent you in court, which not all legal consultants can do it actually. So we do that for our members as well. Okay, we consult members as well. Let's just say if our members have any specific challenges that is very tailored to their very own business company, which they need to sit down, they need to draw up a context and plan and talk and one-to-one session with our consultants. We actually do that and can arrange as well. Okay, we have our own conference and seminars, which you can stay tuned on our our members portal, our website, and will also be sent via our EDM. Okay, and all of our training programs, especially done by MEFA also, is all HRDC claimable. And lastly, our publications, which is actually at the sale as well. Okay, so be part of our growing members. This is just a glance of a number of members that we have accumulated throughout the years, and of course still growing as we hit into 2025 this year. Okay, so for all of you here, okay, some of you might have branches and offices in different branches. They can always also seek advice from our branch consultant. Each and every branch here, we have total of 7 to service over 7,000 members. Of course, headquarters still holds the most. Okay, so split out to others. Okay, we actually have one branch consultant each in each branch that can actually assist you with it. Let's just see if you happen to have any outstation states that is near to our branch, you can always actually make an appointment with us. Okay, so in MEF membership, there are 2 kinds. First, I'm talking about ordinary. Ordinary member is I would say the most, the majority. Okay, so the fee structure goes like, there will be a one-time off entrance fee when you join, 500 ringgit, and every year annual subscription of depending on how many employees you have. Okay, so let's just say a company of less than 20 employees, it will be fixed at 500. So your subscription will be 500 ringgit entrance plus 500 ringgit subscription, total 1,000. But let's just say if your employee is more than 21 but still below 100, it will be fixed at 1,000. So your first time payment will be 1,500, subsequent year 1,000. So if you have more than 100, then you need to refer the table below. For the first 100, it's going to be 1,000. For the second 100, it's going to so and so forth. Okay, so this is how our structure goes. Okay, for more questions, you can always email us, call us. I will provide the email shortly. So if you guys would like to know more or would like to get this slide that I am actually sharing so that you can actually propose and review and consider to join or not, we welcome you to do so. Drop us an email, we will actually assist you accordingly, or we can also drop it into the chat box so we can actually send it over to you. Okay. So another kind of membership that MEF have is also called association member. Association member basically is, I would say, is usually is a non-business entity, okay, but they serve different members. So there are different kind of associations that we have right now, which is related to hotel, banks, insurance, and for individuals as well. So depending on the nature of business, any questions, you can always give us a call and write into us as well. So my last slide will end here. Okay, if you are ready to join us or if you have any inquiries at any point of time, okay, please give us a call here or drop us an email over here. I'm going to steal this slide for a while. Okay, so without further ado, I will actually get Encik Anis to continue his topic today, which is on which is on risk assessment, an effective tool to prevent accident at workplace. Welcome, Encik Fahmy.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Chan, for the kind introduction. So for today, we will discuss a very crucial topic in the field of safety and health, which is risk assessment. And part and parcel of the discussion in safety and health is focused on conducting risk assessment at the workplace. And it is now a legal requirement for organizations, for companies to conduct risk assessment, especially in activities that are exposing workers to hazard. So that's why I choose this topic for my talk today. Risk assessment as an effective tool to prevent accident at the workplace. Because if you have an accident at the workplace, people get injured, the company can be sued. The company can be charged negligent. The company can be charged negligent. And any negligent case, the proof of proving safety and health is the burden of the company. So that is why it is important that you use this risk assessment as one of an important activity so that in the event you have an accident at the workplace, you do have evidence that you have done your best. So that will contribute a lot in the judgment by the young Arif in the court of law. Okay, so I believe some of you may heard of this. We do have the Occupational Safety and Health Act 1994 to secure people at work. And the objective of this occupational safety and health is to secure the safety, health, and welfare of person at work. So there are three domains that you need to take care of people at work. The first one is the safety of people from any harm when they are using machineries, when they are using any tools, or when they are performing their work. So that is number one priority. Number two is on the health of the person. So as a company or organization, we are not supposed to harm the health of people and impair people when they are performing the work. And finally, welfare. Welfare here refers to any provision by the employer that can reduce the stress at work, that can reduce the strain at work, that can reduce human error at work. Human error at work. For example, you are not supposed to work consecutively without any short breaks in between your work. So that is what we mean by welfare, something that assists and contribute to workers focusing on a job. Because if you cannot focus on the job, you are fatigued, for example, what will happen to you? Basically, you will trigger a human error at work. When you have a human error at work, the next sequence of steps possible to be an accident. So that is why under Safety and Health, under Occupational Safety and Health Act, the focus, the main objective is to secure safety, health, and welfare. Number two, it's not just about our worker that we need to protect. We need to protect other people also. When you have visitors, when you have people coming to your workplace, or people are just passing by your workplace, they are not supposed to be harmed in any way. So these are the two objectives of the OSHA Act. And if you look at the current OSHA Act, after the amendment, which was done in 2022, before 2022, the requirement for risk assessment was not spelled out clearly in any text of the OSHA Act. But now we have it under Section 18B. Under Section 18B, employer, it's spelled out clearly, employer shall conduct a risk assessment. An employer shall conduct a risk assessment related to safety, health. Any risk related to safety and health. So what does it mean here? It means here any exposure to hazard related to work. So you must have people working, then you have safety and health risk. So when you have people working, and if the company expose people to hazard, then you need to conduct a risk assessment. Because the risk assessment will give priority to high risk, moderate risk, and to low risk, and which one to take action first. And normally, if you conclude your risk assessment to be high, then immediately you need to stop the work. Because if you continue working in such manner, then people may get injured, not just injured, maybe serious injury. So that is why under our practice, if we conclude something is high, then we need to stop work and start to put in place the control measure. Where a risk assessment indicates that risk control is required, then you have to do it. And so when you talk about risk control, you need to follow the hierarchy of control. First and foremost, as much as possible, eliminate hazard at the workplace. If you identify a hazard, you can immediately eliminate that hazard, then do so. Don't delay, because you never know. Even a small scale hazard can cause catastrophic incidences. So it is very important. The most effective way your approach should be to eliminate as much as possible. But sometimes it is not practical to eliminate. So what you do, as much as possible, try to reduce the hazard. So those are the things that you need to do in terms of identifying the hazard, controlling the hazard. When it comes to the term risk assessment, it means it's a systematic process of evaluating the risk. So what you need to do is to identify the hazard, what category the hazards are. It can be physical hazard, it can be chemical hazard, it can be biological hazard, it can be psychosocial hazard. So depending on what type of hazard that you are exposed to, then you need to identify the hazard properties. You need to identify the hazard properties. Based on the hazard properties, only you can start to do your risk assessment. When I say hazard properties, we are looking into 4 items: the hazard, the hazardous situation, the hazardous event, and also the hazardous events that can trigger. So based on that, you conclude whether it is high risk, is it moderate risk, or is it low risk. So based on the risk level, then you start to put in place the control measure. So this is, in a nutshell, the simplest term that I can put to you. What do we mean by risk assessment? So in order to do so, you cannot simply do without training. So please, within your rank, within the staff that you have, send them for risk assessment training. That will help you to enhance the quality of risk assessment that you conduct in your organization. It's not just about that. When you talk about hazard, we are talking about the types of hazard. Different hazard may need different approach of risk assessment. Later, I'll elaborate on this. Hold on. How many minutes? Total. How many minutes? Lecture.
Page.
One hour. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have 1 hour with you, so I'll try to do my best to explain in detail about this risk assessment. Okay, if you don't do the risk assessment now, starting June 2024, you can be charged. The company can be charged up to 500,000 ringgit. So the maximum is 500,000 ringgit, or you can be sent to jail. You can be sent to jail. Even worse, both. You can be charged 500,000 ringgit, and you can go to jail. When I say you, it means somebody representing the employer, manager and above. Manager and above. It can be a manager, it can be a senior manager, it can be a CEO, it can be even the board of director. So that's by definition what we mean by employer. So please take the subject matter seriously, start to look into your hazard and identify as much as possible, list it down, what the hazards that you have a hazard register, a proper hazard register, so that you can from time to time monitor the progress of your control measure, and from time to time you can control the hazard. Another thing about hazard that you need to know, hazard very dynamic. It's not a static thing. It's not a static thing. Today you may have a hazard, tomorrow it's gone, and then suddenly a few weeks later you have it again. So that's why it is a continuous process of monitoring. So when you have hazard, it's not static, and conducting risk assessment is not a one-off kind of an exercise. You must have it in a planned interval. For example, every 3 years. The guideline under our high-rank guideline recommend that the company study the hazard and review the hazard within 3 years if there's no changes to process and if there's no accident. Okay, so these are the 5 category or types of hazard that are very common at the workplace. The first one, we have biological hazard. A biological hazard here can be fungi, yeast, bacteria, virus, insect, and so on. So that's category number 1. And the biological hazard is the one that is quite difficult to conduct risk assessment because you cannot see and observe with your eyes. For example, bacteria, virus. So how do you conduct a risk assessment? You can only see when it is already affecting the person, when you see the symptoms of its effect. So that's why biological hazard is something that is quite technical and difficult to do. Number 2, you have ergonomics. Ergonomic is the interaction of the worker with his work. So for example, if you are working as a clerk, your interaction with your work most likely will be sitting all day long. You will be sitting there all day long. So here you can see that you are suffering from static posture. So you have to stay in your station maybe more than 8 hours. So it is not good for your, you can say, your blood circulation, because static posture is considered as one stress source under ergonomics. If you are working in a kitchen, for example, a hotel, they have kitchens, for example. So what do? They do a lot of cutting vegetables and chopping vegetables. So they are doing a lot of repetition. Movement of the body part. So sooner or later, wear and tear of the body, you may suffer carpal tunnel syndrome, you may suffer musculoskeletal disorder, because of the repetition that you do day in, day out. Or another example, if you are working at the warehouse, you have to do a lot of lifting, bending, carrying, pulling, pushing. Then you may suffer from awkward posture stressors. So all of these are due to the interaction between the worker with his work. And this is what we mean by ergonomic stressors, ergonomic stressor. So now currently, the Department of Occupational Safety and Health is encouraging company to conduct ergonomic risk assessment. Risk assessment. It is split into 2. The first one, we call it initial ERA, ergonomic risk assessment, short-term ERA. So the ERA is to identify whether or not you need further analysis of the stressors. So normally what company do, you conduct an initial ERA, and if the initial ERA cannot solve the problem, then you have to further your ergonomic ERA to initial ERA to advanced ergonomic risk assessment. And for your information, ERA or ergonomic risk assessment cannot be done by everybody. It must be done by ergonomic trained person. So you need to make sure that if you are keen to do ergonomic risk assessment, then you have to get somebody that has the qualification or credential, which is the ergonomic risk assessment trained person. So you must get those who are registered as ergonomic trained person with knowledge. And then we have psychosocial hazard. We have psychosocial, meaning the stress or the impairment or the pressure to your mental health. It can be due to shift work. It can be due to heavy load of work to be done, short hours of work with too many works to do, many variables here. And it is under psychosocial hazard. And nowadays, DOSH is encouraging the organization to conduct a psychosocial hazard under the PRISMA. PRISMA is the guideline for psychosocial risk assessment. They call it, in short, PRISMA. And again, to conduct PRISMA must be of those people that have the credential of trained person registered with DOSH. But for your information, here in Malaysia, psychosocial hazard and its risk tools are still new, and we are not yet matured in terms of conducting risk assessment for psychosocial. And DOSH is setting up, if I was told that they are preparing, they have the guideline already, but in terms of people, we do not have yet the training provider to provide psychosocial risk assessment training. So if I know, or maybe they are into it now, but as far as last year, we still have yet to see any competent person under PRISMA guideline. Okay, and then the most, I can say, exposed nowadays. We can see that the most exposed hazard at work is chemical hazard. And if you look at the statistic, people are now suffering a lot of chemical exposure. And we do have few, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 confirmed cancer cases due to work, because of long-term exposure to chemical hazard and was not properly controlled. So chemical hazard can have 2 types of effect. The first one is safety hazard. For example, chemical can cause fire, can cause explosion. That is one category of it. The second category, it can harm your health. Chemical exposure can harm your health, and it can even affect up to the level of causing cancer, if it is long-term exposure. So chemical hazard, if you have people performing work, mixing chemical solution, working with chemical, then you have to make sure that they are protected, number one. But as an employer, you need to conduct the chemical health risk assessment. And again, not everybody can do chemical health risk assessment. Chemical health risk assessment can only be done by a chemical assessor. So even a safety and health officer, if the safety and health officer does not have the credential of chemical health risk assessor, he is not allowed to do a chemical health risk assessment. So you need to get the registered chemical health risk assessor to perform a risk assessment related to chemical exposure hazardous to health. And then we do have another types of hazard, which is very common, physical hazard. So when you talk about physical hazard, it can be anything that the workers are exposed to at work. For example, mechanical hazard, if the person is working near the machineries, then a lot of mechanical hazard at the machine area. And not just that, normally machineries also emits noise, and noise can cause hearing impairment. Vibration can be full body vibration due to tools, machineries, and so on. And it can also be targeted vibration or partial body vibration. Radiation related to the use of X-ray, for example. And then temperature, if it is too hot, if it is too cold, all of these are under the category of physical hazard. So for your workplace, you can do this. Not noise. Noise, you must get a noise risk assessor to do a risk assessment. But for any other physical hazard, we do have the guideline that you can use for you to conduct physical hazard risk assessment. But you need to go for training, and it's not as easy as that. You have to make sure that people are well trained to conduct the hazard identification, risk assessment, and control. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how the authority classify the hazard. We have biological hazard, we have ergonomics or ergonomic hazard, we have psychosocial hazard, we have chemical hazard, and also physical hazard. And And if you have all, then you have to plan to conduct all, because as I mentioned, different hazard, you may need to use different risk assessment method. So you cannot just have a one lump sum or one tool to cover all 5 here. So different category of hazard may need different risk assessment method. So in order for you to conduct the risk assessment, number one, you have to know the hazard. You have to identify the hazard. You have to know the hazard properties. So there's a lot of reference in DOSH website that you can use as reference for you to start your risk assessment. All of this, which I put in this slide, are not limited just to this, but these are some examples that you can use when you want to perform your hazard ID or hazard identification. Right? So if you want to study some issues related to ergonomics, for example, then you can use the guideline for manual handling at work 2018. So that would be a very good reference for you to study ergonomic related to manual handling. So if you are exposed to noise, then you can refer to the guideline for controlling occupational noise. So again, it depends on what type of hazard that you have. Then you need to refer to already published document. And to me, since we are in Malaysia, then it's better for us to refer to the local context, which is DOSH publication. And after all, they are the enforcer. After all, DOSH are the enforcer. So normally they would be happy to see industry referring to their documents when you do any arrangement at the workplace. So a bit about some terms and definition related to hazard, and this is extracted from the HIRAC guideline, guideline for hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. This is the most referred document when it comes to conducting hazard identification, risk assessment, and control. Okay, before we go further, let me explain. There are two types of risk assessment. One, we call it as occupational safety and health risk assessment for personnel assessment. Personnel assessment meaning we assess the work conducted by our personnel or our staff. So it is more on the exposure of hazard to the personnel, to the person. That's number one. And this is the one that you can use for conducting HIRAC or risk assessment. Another risk assessment, normally in the industry, process safety. Under process safety, we conduct a lot of risk assessment related to the process. For example, if you have a chemical process plant, then you have a chemical equipment that you use to process the chemical. That particular machineries or that particular machine can burst and explode. So it also contains and possesses risk. But that one, we leave it to the process safety management, risk assessment. The one that you need to focus is on people, because normally the process safety will be done by professional engineers. They will do the risk assessment on that. And of course, as layman, you are not competent to do any process safety risk assessment. But for personnel safety, the safety of your people, the worker performing the job, that one you can do by using this hazard guideline for hazard identification, risk assessment, and control. So in a simple term, hazard can be anything. Can be anything, any source, any situation that can cause harm to human. Because now we are talking about OSH, then it's on the human. It's on the human. Any harm on the human. Apa-apa yang boleh memudaratkan. So if you can harm, or if the source can harm a worker, it's a hazard. If you have an element at the workplace that can harm the worker, it's a hazard. And when you talk about harm, there are two categories. The first category of harm is acute. You can see the effect immediately. For example, if a person is working with a chemical and suddenly the chemical splash onto his skin and cause irritation to the skin, that is acute. You can see the effect immediately. But there are another category which is chronic. Chronic means long term. You need sufficient dose, you need sufficient duration, dose and duration. For example, a simple example is a smoker. You don't see a smoker die on the first cigarette butt. No, never. But you can see a heavy smoker suffer lung disease many years later. So that is what we mean by chronic effect. So hazard can be either acute effect or it can be chronic effect. And some may contain both. Some may contain both. So that's the nature of hazard. And when we talk about risk assessment, it's a very systematic process that you can do to identify the hazard and then to determine the risk level. And again, as I mentioned earlier, a hazard can be high risk, a hazard can be moderate risk, or a hazard can be low risk. So the different degree of risk will decide and determine the different type of control measure. So these are the basic when you deal with hazard identification. And please feel free to refer to this guideline. Although this guideline is quite old, but it is still valid. And I was under the impression that the government is reviewing this guideline, and they may come out soon, but I don't know when, the new code of practice for conducting risk assessment. But anyhow, for the time being, the hierarchy that we have, the guideline that we have is still current, we can say a current publication by DOSH. Okay, so as you can see here in this slide, there are a lot of guidelines that you can use in order for you to conduct the risk assessment. For example, if you want to do a risk assessment for risk assessment related to ergonomic, then you have to refer to the guideline on ergonomic risk assessment. If you want to do a risk assessment related to physical hazard, then you can use the guideline for hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. So different hazard, different guideline, depending on the types of hazard. So you can refer to all these risk assessment publication issued by DOSH. This is depicted from the hierarchy guideline. So again, when you conduct your risk assessment, you cannot do it alone, because doing risk assessment need a lot of support from your worker, because they know better sometimes what they are exposed to, the previous past experience related to hazard. All of this information you need to gain from your worker. So when you want to do your risk assessment, make sure that you have a team. You have a team, a trained team to conduct risk assessment, and their duty is to facilitate the the exercise. And then what you need to do is to classify the work activities. What you can do here is start with the work done by the worker that you perceived, you perceive to be high risk. You perceive doesn't mean it's high risk. It means that you anticipate it is a high risk. But of course, to be certain, to confirm, you need to conduct this high rec. So go with that. Go by your anticipation. Do all the high risk, your anticipated high risk activities. Once that is done, then you can go to any other activities that may not be as high as that. And then you may also need to do risk assessment for new processes, a non-routine work. Because a non-routine work means the people are not yet experienced with the hazard. So they may be exposed and prone to getting contact with the hazard. So it's good that if you can identify the non-routine work performed by the worker and start to do a risk assessment. And another scenario is if you have an accident. When you have an accident, which means that the control measure is not sufficient, then you need to conduct a new risk assessment. And to me, based on my experience, it is important that when you introduce a new control measure, that new control measure should not be introducing also a new hazard. And because people get excited to put in place new control measure, new technology. But remember, when you introduce something, it may also carry new hazard. So that's what I mean. A hazard risk assessment is a continuous process. You cannot just have one go and that's it. 5 years, we do another one. No, it is a continuous monitoring process. So in your team, you must have people representing the employer and people representing the worker. If possible, get those who have, I can say, 5 years experience in their work. They have a better insight on how the work is done, what are the hazards associated to the work, do you have any past incident or not. So those are the right candidate to be in the team. So the next step is to conduct the hazard ID. Here we are looking into the 5 types of hazard that we have discussed earlier. The physical hazard, the psychosocial hazard, the chemical hazard. So you need to identify. You need to identify all the hazard, and it's good that you list them down. Have a hazard register. Have a hazard register, and because if without that list, without that register, you cannot monitor. So you need to have the register in place. And then your team with those who are experienced or the subject matter expert in that work can start to do the risk assessment. And when you conclude, it's either on one of the 3. It can be low risk, it can be moderate risk, and it can be high risk. So prioritize for high risk activity. And then you need to come up with an action plan. And please make sure that all of this activity documented. Make sure you have proper documentation. And please maintain and retain the document for at least 3 years. For at least 3 years. And of course, whatever you propose at this level, risk control action plan, you have to implement, and you have to get those people performing that work to agree with the proposed action plan. Because without them agreeing, definitely it's quite difficult for you to improve the work area. So this is the flowchart when you deal with conducting hazard identification, risk assessment, and control. Okay, so when you talk about risk, it's basically about looking into the severity of the hazard. When I say severity, it means whether the hazard can cause catastrophic event, meaning can kill multiple people. that is catastrophic. It can be catastrophic, or it can cause one single fatality. So when the person perform the work, he can die. That is what we mean here, severity. Or it can cause irreversible injury to the person, permanent disability. Or it can cause minor injury, or it can cause irreversible injury. So those are the normal way we define severity. Keterukan, berapa teruk hazard tu boleh menyebabkan kecederaan kepada pekerja. So it's more focused on the effect of the hazard. That's what we mean by severity. And then another element to risk is the probability of occurrence of the harm. So here is actually we are looking at the hazardous situation and also the hazardous event that can occur while the people are working. So the more you are exposed to the work, the higher the exposure becomes. And the higher the exposure, the higher the risk can be. Okay, that's number one. So the more frequent you perform the work, the higher the possibility for you to get hurt. That's number one. Number two, we look into the chance of hazardous event to occur. Hazardous event means a scenario or an event just one step before your injury. For example, if I'm working at height, this is a very simple example. If a person working at height, suddenly he got blown by the wind and he fall down. So falling is the hazardous event. Falling is the hazardous event, but you are not yet injured. So falling down is a hazardous event. So the more higher the chance for a hazardous event to occur, the higher the risk become. So that would be the second element that we look into in the probability. And finally, even if the hazardous event occur, for example, in the case just now, the person fall down, can he save himself from getting hurt? For example, the company already anticipated working at height, so maybe everybody must have a parachute. Contoh lah, ini contoh merepek saya lah. So everybody got a parachute. So even if you have a hazardous event, the person is falling down, but it does not mean he will get injured. Because why? Because of control measure that you put in place. So in the simple example, you have the parachute. So once you fall down, once the hazardous event occur, you give the person the parachute, definitely, and of course you have to train the person with the parachute, so he can activate the parachute and he is safe. So that's the control measure that avoid, number three here, that avoid the person from getting hurt. So in any work, if you anticipate the hazard can cause harm, what you need to do is to study the hazardous event and also study the hazardous effect, which is the severity just now. The event, the effect, you can control, then you can reduce the risk of person getting injured. So this is the study of risk. And risk is present only when hazards are present. If there's no hazard, there's no risk. If you have hazard and you are exposed to the hazard, then you can study the risk. So this is, in a simple term, risk equal to severity times probability. So we look into the severity of the hazard, and we look into the hazardous event, hazardous situation that can cause that harm. So this is, in basic line, what we mean by the study of risk assessment. Okay, so if you look at the guideline for HIREC has already classified the severity and also the likelihood of hazardous event. You can see here, catastrophic. If the work can cause catastrophic event, then we will give the rating 5, which is the highest in this category. If a person work and can die, at least a single death, then the value is 4, so on and so forth. So this is the severity, the first element that we look into under risk assessment. The second element is the hazardous event probability. So here, if every time the person perform the work, he can get injured, he can suffer the hazardous event, then the category is 5. Then you use this table here, the likelihood times severity. So let's say a person is working at height, 20-story high. So if he fall down without any equipment or any control measure, definitely he can die. So the severity for that case will be 4, because the person can die. But how likely is the person going to die depends on a control measure. As in my example just now, the person is given a parachute. So the likelihood for it to happen may be 3. 3 here means might occur, but not sure whether or not he will die. So 3 times 4 is 12. So in this case, we conclude working at height provided with a parachute is 12. 12 here means what? Means it is under the yellow coding here, which is medium risk. So what are you supposed to do when you get a case medium? A medium risk require a planned approach to control the hazard and apply temporary measure. Action taken must be documented on the risk assessment from form, including date of completion. So if you conclude it is a medium risk, then this is the action that you need to do. Another example, working in the office as a clerk. So have you heard of any clerk die because of using computer? Definitely not. So you cannot put severity 5. So maybe you can get some sharp edges due to the corners of the table and so on. Maybe you have a slight injury or minor abrasion due to the work equipment and so on. So the severity for a clerk may be 1. But how frequent do we hear people getting injured? Most likely not, kan? So 1 times 1 is 1. So working in an office setting can conclude it is in the green zone, which is low. So what do you do when you get a hazard risk assessment low? A risk identified as low may be considered as acceptable, and further reduction may not be required. So this is the risk action table. We call it risk action table or risk matrix for us to analyze the hazard and put in place control measure. You can refer the details in the hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control document published by DOSH. Okay, so when you talk about risk assessment also, it is important that to acknowledge this. When you do risk assessment, it can be a qualitative method or it can be a quantitative method. Qualitative meaning that whoever is performing the risk assessment need professional judgment. Need professional judgment based on a lot of parameters. And he needs to make the judgment. Whereas quantitative is more confirmed and fine because we already have the statistic to support us. We already have the scientific data to support our decision making. So for qualitative, there are few types of qualitative method. For example, HIREC, which I just explained just now, conducting chemical health risk assessment, conducting health risk assessment, ergonomic risk assessment. And so all of this 1, 2, 3, 4 is of qualitative approach. is of qualitative approach. Quantitative approach, when you do chemical exposure monitoring, inspection and testing of engineering control, all of these are done by hygiene technician. Medical surveillance and biological monitoring, noise risk assessment, all of this will carry scientific data. For example, decibel, for example, part per million, and parts of chemical and so on and so forth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here is more of quantitative approach. But at least as a company, you need to do this one. And number one here, HIREC, because that one deals with physical hazard and the most common hazard at the workplace. And if you look at the purpose, also the qualitative method here is to identify whether or not you have put in place control measure, proper control measure, adequate control measure, and it is for the purpose of monitoring. And it is for the purpose of monitoring. And as for the chemical health risk assessment, and we will look into also medical surveillance data, and you may need to monitor. You may need to monitor the exposure of chemical to the worker and send the worker for medical surveillance. And of course, to provide a worker with training and also any PPE, personal protective equipment. Okay, so we have a lot of risk assessment methodology that depending again on the hazard that you encounter at the workplace. Okay, so if you believe that you need to conduct, then please make sure that you do it properly. If it is related to chemical exposure, get somebody who is a chemical health risk assessor registered with DOSH. Because if you get somebody else to do it for you, though the method is correct, but the person is not registered, then the whole risk assessment is void. The whole risk assessment in terms of legal is void. So you have to make sure that get the right people to do. It can be your staff, no harm, but must be registered. So all of this category here, assessor, indoor air quality assessor, noise risk assessor, occupational health doctor doing surveillance, ergonomic trained person must be registered. Must be registered. The one that you can kick off immediately is this one. Conducting the physical risk assessment, which is the HIREC. But of course, under OSHA Section 15, when you want to do something, you have to be trained. You have to be trained. So please send your staff, especially if you have the OSHA coordinator. He is supposed to be able to do this. And so send the right person, go for the training, and then when he comes back, he can start to coordinate and conduct the HIREC. HIREC, again, I stress to you, it is the tool to be used when you want to do risk assessment for physical hazard. It's only confined to physical hazard. But if you have a lot of people suffering musculoskeletal disorder, a lot of people are complaining, a lot of backache, a lot of shoulder ache, and so on, then you better go for ergonomic risk assessment. And again, you need to get somebody who is trained and registered with DOSH as the ergonomic trained person. Okay, with that note, and again, where to find them, these people, the competent people, go to the DOSH website. You can see here there are a lot of competency listed down in the website, and you can ask them if they are freelancers. Definitely, they can assist you on conducting this assessment. And okay, so with that, I think that's all from me. Thank you for attending the session. Anything, you can call us. In MEF, we offer HIREC services. We offer ergonomic risk assessment services. So those are the two that we have people registered with us to perform it for you. Okay, with that note, again, thank you very much. Any question? We have a question. Can I check it from here?
Skinny push.
Okay, so the next session will be Q&A, question and answers, if any. So far, we don't have any questions, so I believe all are done. No question on the lecture. If there's any, tada. Okay, kalau tak ada, thank you very much. That's all, everybody. Thank you for attending the session. That's it. Okay. But there's no tujuan pula this time.